So this came up recently. Someone was asking about dyno chart smoothness. So before we're gonna show a graphic, but there was some talk online that people were comparing our advertised dyno charts to Unitronics, and because Unitronics lines looked smoother, there was this assumption that their tune must be smoother. Um, so that's just not true. I'm not saying Unitronics tune isn't smooth. What I'm saying is you cannot tell how smooth a tune is necessarily from looking at manipulated, uh, you know, chart lines like what Unitronic and 034 Motorsport and other companies produce.
Yeah, I mean the biggest offender is honestly the OEMs. Like
They're
if you look at a
I mean,
factory
they're
bench
not the worst. They have very smooth.
yeah, if you look at
straight.
a dyno plot from a manufacturer on when they release a new model, it's like 4 or 5 points is about all you're gonna get. You're gonna get where the torque starts, where the torque plateau kind of ends, and where it falls off at red line.
Yeah.
And that's literally it. It's like the most data deprived chart you could imagine.
So if you ever made a chart in Excel or you took a basic math class, if you remember from high school or college, there is a function when it comes to graphing called smoothing. And when you smooth a graph, you reduce the amount of data points to create a line that's possibly more representative of the information you're looking to represent.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with smoothing, but if you don't smooth enough, the line isn't going to really represent what you need it to. And if you over smooth it, it's not going to represent it either. So what's the most smooth line you can get? It's 1 data point, which isn't even a line. So 2 data points would be a very smooth data set, and you'd have a straight line between 2 data points. You could do that with the dyno chart. You could have peak torque, onset, and torque at red line, and it would be it would basically be a triangle. But by smoothing the data, you create something that's more representative of what you actually feel. So when it comes to a dyno chart, what are we trying to create? We're trying to create lines that represent to you, the person who's driving, approximately what you would feel as you accelerate through the torque curve, through the horsepower curve. So let's play this. So I had Nate take our current advertised lines, which is what you're seeing now, and then this is a smoothed version of that. These are both the same tune.
It's the same data, honestly.
Same exact data with some data manipulated, but it's the same set of data.
It's not manipulated. It's just removing some points here and there.
Well, that's the manipulation.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but the core data, the numbers are not changed. So
same data set, but with a different treatment of the data to produce these graphs. So this is just we're just showing you.
Example.
We could have released this. We chose not to because we felt like what we released was more accurate or indicative of what you're actually going to feel when you drive.
And same with the OEM one. If you look, if you look at the OEM number on this, like that's not as tabletop flat as the OEM.
What the OEM one?
It's on the stock one's smooth as well on it.
Okay, yeah.
The bottom.
Well, no, what Audi releases.
Yeah, I'll try and find that. Actually,
just
I'm going to look that up.
It's not to say that Unitronic did a bad thing. That's not what we're saying.
Oh, we're just
they just chose to represent their tune using a different amount of smoothing than we did. Now, keep in mind, the data that comes out of the dyno is literally a cloud of data. So you get a jagged line like this that goes across the chart.
I was actually
it's not even a line.
About to talk about that. So, I mean, just think of how an internal combustion engine works, and you cannot dyno a car without smooth. I mean, it is literally, these combustion events are the only thing that is, making that power. So it's a huge, seesawing thing.
So what comes out of the dyno is indecipherable, basically. It's not useful to the human eye or brain. And so you basically average out those extreme points, and you create a line that goes through the data that's representative of what you think the data means. So anyways, this is just simple. If some of you guys are probably like laughing that this is so simple because you deal with data and analysis in your jobs and your day-to-day life, or you learned about this in high school. But there were some people who genuinely thought that this must mean the unitronic tune is smoother.
And
That's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, it's a battle we face because, like, we can just give you the, you know, just the more representative data, which may not look as pretty, or we can pretty it up more, but then it doesn't necessarily. It's not what you're going to see on a dyno. And if you've seen any of the dynos out in the real world of these two tunes, they look much more like our chart.
We strive to give an accurate representation of what the engine is doing. And what the engine is doing is not necessarily the result of our tuning. Engines are imperfect. There's resonances, there's massive changes and swings in volumetric efficiency. In some cases, power would normally drop off, and then the cams and the valves are adjusting to bring that power back. So you might see a small dip and then an increase. It doesn't mean that you got a dip, it means you got an increase. But what comes out of an engine is not smooth, like a straight line. It's not even close. So,
anyways, cars, you would get a much smoother line. Even those have a frequency.
They will. Yeah.
So yeah,
no, because there are individual magnetic pulses.
It depends just the resolution you're looking at the data.
Yeah, you should just be skeptical when you see an overly smooth line, and if you see an overly jagged line, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's better either. I would say what we do, we strive to offer the most.
And this data is like straight off the dyno. I mean, this is not, it's not manipulated. It's what you're seeing is what's coming off the dyno.